So then what is fourth density? Because we're like, okay, the fifth dimension. What is that energy? You're talking about it being unconditional love. What else can you share about that?
Yeah. Well, again, it's the great stepping stone to all of your spiritual ability as a conscious entity. And it all begins with love. And Ra emphasizes this a lot, that love is the primary force. Love is, in Ra's terms, the strongest magic in the universe.
Mm.
It is the foundation upon which all spirituality must rest. And that's basically the recognition of oneness, is what love is. To see another as one with you is to love them. That's why
Mm.
mothers and fathers love their children so much compared to other beings. It's like it's actually just a being like any other being, but because their perception is this being came out of me, they have a oneness awareness of their
Mm.
child. And so there's this boundless love they feel that can't be
Yeah.
compared to any other being, right?
Yeah.
So you actually can have that exact feeling of love for all beings, but you have to see them as yourself, as extensions of the one creator. So Ra really stresses this. In one passage, they ask Ra, like, what are some good practices to open the heart chakra? Ra says, number one, good place to start, gaze within a mirror and behold the creator. So
Mm.
see yourself as the creator, right? Step two would be look upon another, look at others and see the creator there too.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, of course, would be service to others. So if you are truly seeing others as one with you, then there would be the same compulsion to act for their highest good as much as your own. And so this is where we get into martyrdom, right? Is like martyrdom is a really interesting catalyst because the gravity of love, or you might say sometimes the foolishness of love, is that
Yeah.
it just gives itself and thinks nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have that fifth density or fifth chakra wisdom to balance itself with, to realize, well, I have this desire to love all and give myself, but that's actually, in a sense, seeing myself as less valid than them if I martyr myself to help them. So that's
You're
a good
not
catalyst for us in fourth density.
you're not inclusive of your own oneness as you as a part of oneness. Like there's still
Right,
some kind of
exactly.
hierarchy of it.
Yep.
That's interesting. And in the fourth density, as I understand it, is that you can explore love in any way you want. Like it can be self-sacrifice martyrdom. Like it can
Sure,
be
of course.
like you're meant to like explore all these different versions of what love is
Yeah. I mean,
without the
truthfully,
wisdom.
we are martyring ourselves all the time
Yeah.
in little ways without realizing it.
Yes.
And so that's a part of our own catalyst here as positive beings on the positive polarity
Mm-hmm.
who are service to others, is where am I overextending myself to be of service? Because Ross says in the fifth density, a fifth density being actually spends most of its time alone in isolation, um, meditating on self-knowledge and developing those really powerful psychic abilities to be of service to the greater whole. And Ross says like a distinction between a fourth and a fifth density being is that a fourth density being is like traveling to other planets to help other civilizations fix their world issues and like learn about the creator and the universe. Whereas a fifth density being is more concerned with raising their own vibration as high as possible so
Mm-hmm.
that they can affect the planetary vibration and help a greater whole all at once
Mm-hmm.
rather than one people group at a time. So each density has its own place and is equally valid. It's a
Yeah.
part of our learning, just like all the grades in school are.
Yeah.
But there are levels to this, right? Just like there's levels to everything.
Yeah, and it's tricky because let's get into wanderers and starseeds because if we did have experience in fourth density or fifth density in other lifetimes or whatnot, coming back and then just being like, I'm just gonna meditate by myself in wisdom. You're like, you just came back to third
Yeah.
density. Like you need to start
Yep.
here. And so it's I feel like I feel that for myself is sometimes there is this reaching to the next one when it's like, where are we now? So will you explain from the perspective of Law of One Wanderers, which we also akin to Starseed?
Right. Yeah, this is another really cool component of the law of one that resonates with people is the idea that
Does it resonate with you?
yeah, big time, big time. Um, the idea is that a higher density being, if it's looking to gain if it's looking to learn certain lessons, or it wants to gain a certain amount of polarity, third density is like where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the veil of forgetting, the catalysts here are like 100 times more intense than they can get in their native density, because there's no veil. They know everything. They are everything. Like, the polarization happens a lot slower,
Yeah.
but there's a lot greater risk because there's that veil. You don't remember where you came from, and you have to grapple with those negative polarities again. So it's possible that you could become karmically involved in a third density incarnation and then have to return again a few more lifetimes to work it out. So it's a bit of a gamble, but I think souls that are, number one, that trust in their vibration enough to say, I know who I am. I know that I am a servant of love, first and foremost. And no matter what life throws at me in third density, I know my soul will remember love and choose love. So I'm not
Mm.
worried. Let's do this. A second reason would be that they see a planet very much like ours that's really struggling, and they need some help. And positive souls will want to incarnate there to tip the scales towards the positive side, to gain some momentum and raise the vibration, which is exactly what happened on our planet, apparently. And this was channeled back in the 80s. So Ra says in about 30 years' time, around the year 2011, 2012, Earth will finish its third density cycle and become magnetized to a fourth density vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently at that time, we were kind of in between that 51 to 5% margin of the positive and negative.
Yeah.
And we needed more positive souls to tip the scales. So
Mm-hmm.
Ross says a lot of wanderers are incarnating right now to help the planet. And even just them sort of putting their own soul's journey on pause to go help Earth out, um, is service to others. And just that act alone will give them polarity,
Right.
and they risk the forgetting and all of that. So there's a lot of sort of martyrdom in that, in a sense.
Mm.
So for that reason, Ross says fourth density wanderers are very common, and sixth density wanderers are the most common,
Wow.
which is interesting, right?
Yeah, it is interesting.
And that's just because Ross says the sixth density is where you have to balance love and wisdom, fourth and fifth density, in perfect harmony with one another, perfect balance, 50-50. And so sixth density souls that are maybe looking to speed that balancing up or need a certain lesson, they will go to third density to get it, because again, it's just way more available here than it is in their own density.
That makes a lot of sense. And especially here because it's like, okay, martyrdom has been experienced through Christ and Christ consciousness on the planet.
Right.
And it's like, how do we also integrate wisdom into this realm template, of third density? It's like, okay, that template's there, but then how do we add wisdom to this? Because the self sacrifice isn't taking humanity all the way, right?
Right. Exactly. That's
That's
very much a catalyst that I'm grappling with right now. I
mm,
know probably most people listening on the spiritual path are grappling with. And this is something that's come up a lot on my YouTube channel and my Instagram. As you know, I had been sitting sort of on the sidelines, so to speak, for most of the pandemic, and not speaking out too much against a lot of the corruption and manipulation we saw going on. Because
yeah.
it's like, hey, we all see it. What am I going to add to it?
Yes.
Let me just work on myself and make use of this catalyst, which I did. But at a certain point, not speaking up for what I know to be right in my heart became too painful.
Mm-hmm.
And the internal conflict of staying silent outweighed the, let's say, fear of speaking out. And
Yes.
so as I've begun posting more about, hey, we need to stand against this level of corruption, whether it's vaccine enforcements or forcing people to make decisions they don't want to make. I mean, that's not service to others. That's not honoring of free will.
Mm-mm.
And free will is the number one component of service to others. So I've been speaking out against these things and showing some of the ways that we are being lied to and manipulated to help raise awareness. It's like, I have a platform. I want to make use of it. This feels like the greatest act of service to others that I can do right now. And
Mm-hmm.
doing it in a way that doesn't create more division, that doesn't make anybody an enemy. We're not talking about people or demonizing or dehumanizing anyone. We're simply talking about energies in the collective. We're talking about ideas and thought systems that are being perpetrated upon us. And all we can really do is raise awareness of them and say, you choose. If you want to get this jab, absolutely, that's your free choice. Do it. I would never tell somebody not to do anything. But if
Yes.
you don't want to get it because it violates your conscience, then you should not be forced to get it either. Both should be equally respected. And we're very much not seeing that in our world. And so I get messages from people time to time over the last few months saying, well, you're a spiritual teacher, Aaron. Why are you talking about world issues? Shouldn't you just be quiet and let it all happen and trust? And it's like, there's absolutely truth to that, in that we should never allow what's happening in the world to cause us to suffer, right? Because that means our perspective's out of balance.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean we sit by. Like, I reject any notion of spirituality that says we're supposed to sit in a cave and meditate while the world burns to ashes.
Yep.
That's not spirituality to me. You know, Christ met the corruption of his day with a lot of intensity and pointed out the contradictions he was seeing in the world, the injustices. Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr. These are people who we pedestalize as heroes and spiritual authorities, legends in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they stood against the injustices of their day and spoke truth to power and shone light upon the darkness. And for me, it's like, and I'm sure for you too, Bridget, I just don't want to look back at this period of more corruption than we've ever imagined we would see in our lifetime and know that I stayed silent and didn't speak truth. It's like, there's a way to speak truth in love and peace and unity that doesn't create division, but also exposes injustices that are causing suffering.
Ooh, so good. Yes, I am
Those are my
totally.
thoughts.
I love your thoughts, and I'm totally there too. I was like, if I do not start saying something, like I am not being the thing that I choose to be, that I want to be and see in the
Yeah.
world, right? And I love that piece because you were saying that was the first time that I had heard the integration of service to others and free will being integrative
Yeah.
in that their density experience. So free will is a really big part of that as well.
Yeah. Free will is like the linchpin between the two polarities, because the positive polarity only seeks to, again, give awareness, teach about the nature of life and things, and then say, now you choose. You're a free
Mm-hmm.
entity. You're a free expression of the creator. Dare I not tell you what decision to make? The negative path does the reverse. The negative path polarizes by infringing on free will or
Mm-hmm.
controlling free will.
Yeah.
And so this is why Law of One is so relevant to what we're seeing today, because we tend to think of the negative polarity as these, okay, it's going to be like a evil mustache twirling villain who comes along, I'm going to kill you all. And it's like, I wish it was that easy, but it's not. The devil comes clothed as an angel of light.
Mm-hmm.
And this is our catalyst for wisdom, right? Is that we have to have the sensitivity and awareness of our own intuition to say, hey, this guy's saying all the right things maybe, but something feels off energetically.
Well, and that's the key, is to understand the different densities, which I'd love for you to speak to for a minute, is the densities of negativity. So like the fourth density negative, like how you
Mhm.
can go higher, a higher like
Yeah,
vibration, a higher density in negativity. So you're like, whoa, like I feel that higher vibration, but where wisdom is actually manipulation or lack of free will. Will you
right.
explain that kind of energy? And I think it also diffuses this idea of like this mass evil that just could overtake everything, because you can't go all the way on the negative path,
Right.
which then instills in me like a lot of like hope, because like that the highest beings are light. They're integrative
Right.
in oneness. So
Right.
can you explain the densities of negativity and how far that goes?
Yeah. Another super interesting part of the Law of One.
Yeah.
The negative polarity makes use of the lower three chakras, red, orange, and yellow.
Oh
And
yeah.
they basically, in the same way that we seek to clear the blockages in our lower three chakras, they seek to create blockages. And
Mm-hmm.
at a certain point, they build so much entropy and distortion in those chakras that they become like energetic walls, right? Of a
Wow.
fortress of negativity within themselves, that they can then use that negativity to control others with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the negative polarity will polarize further by tricking, deceiving, convincing, coercing, manipulating another being into freely giving its free will.
Oh, I feel it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, I just had like flashbacks of like TikTok and Instagram where it's like a subtle like the sexuality piece and the distorted
Right.
sexuality being
Yes.
like, no, like you're making this decision, like, and people are like, I'm gonna just kind of prostitute myself on this platform, but then you're giving
Mhm.
away your energy and you're distorting the sexuality, like, so we can see how these, it's like, oh well, yeah, I'm good in my sexuality, but we can see these subtle distortions that then
Yeah.
lead to a whole different pathway. Okay, keep going. That just,
Yeah.
I felt that in my
Yeah.
sacral.
Sexuality is a big way that the negative path will manipulate others.
Yeah.
Ross says this is actually why um, I think they say a negatively polarized entity is imbued with much of what you would call beauty.
Mm.
So they'd be very beautiful in appearance because that's a great way to manipulate people, isn't it?
Yeah, people trust beautiful people.
Yep. So
Stats are
this is
out there.
why the negative path doesn't come as an evil mustache twirling villain, grimacing and all that, because that would give away its plot, its plan,
Mm-hmm.
right? It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want you to know it has its own best interest in mind. It wants you to think it has yours in mind.
Mm.
So if you think about like the way cult leaders work, perfect example of a negatively polarized being or a corrupt politician who says, "Hey, I'm all about doing the right thing. Virtue signal, give me your power, give me your free will, give me your rights, and I promise I'll help you." And all they do is actually enslave you more underneath them. So
Mm-hmm.
you again have to have wisdom to catch this when it's happening, because the negative path will tell you whatever you want to hear.
Yes.
Lie, deceit doesn't matter. As long as they can convince you to freely give your free will, they get a
Yes.
charge from that. If they
Yes.
come in with machine guns and strap you in handcuffs and throw you in a jail cell, they get no polarity,
Mm-hmm.
because it has to be given to them to have polarity, right? So this is why there is no such thing as a negative ET civilization that would come here to kill us all or enslave us on their planet. There'd be zero benefit in them for that.
Yeah.
They want to they would want it to be like a sort of socialist communist takeover where we all say, "Oh, great beings from other planets, we worship you. You are gods in our eyes. We will serve you. And please be our masters." That would give them a lot of polarity. So a
Mm-hmm.
negative race would come here to demonstrate their amazing power, their beauty. They would say, "You want to be like us, don't you? We'll show you the way.
Mm-hmm.
Just give us your free will." And we see this in politics today, all over the world. And a lot of people have the wool over their eyes and they don't recognize it. They can't pick up on that negative energy that this person is actually trying to take away my power and give it to themselves. And so that's their catalyst if they're at that level. At some point, that will create so much suffering that you will begin to wake up. And we see that mass planetary awakening happening just because of that reason.
Okay, okay, Aaron. So we've got this world right now. It's crazy. And things are happening. One of the plays I see is like things happening very quickly, right? Where
Right.
it's like, you need to make this decision tomorrow or else you're going
Yeah.
to kill everyone. And it's
We're
like,
going to knock on your door and make you make the decision.
yeah. And it's like,
Yeah.
really? Really? Like, can we not breathe for a second? Let's like, but what are some of the ways, because things are moving so fast, choices are moving so quickly, energies are so convoluted that people can distinguish and see uh, things for what they really are, to make a really good choice from this balance, service to other, free will, space for themselves and for others?
Yeah. Great question. Very relevant. For me, it looks like if you think about Rosa Parks, the famous Rosa Parks story, in the days of segregation when African Americans weren't allowed to sit in the front of the bus.
Yeah.
And she spoke against that injustice through peaceful non-compliance.
Mm.
This is, I think, what we're being asked to do by the universe. This
Mm-hmm.
is an amazing catalyst for service to others. Is like, how do I stand against clear negative polarity, clear injustice? If we want this to be a positive planet of unity someday for our great, great, great grandchildren to live in a world like that, guess what? We got to create it. And that's
Mm.
why I can't stay silent. I can't
Mm-hmm.
just let things go by and meditate in my closet and hope it'll all work out, because I came here for such a time as this.
Yeah.
Like, we all came here. If we're wanderers, most of us on the spiritual path, identify as that. Well, then you came here for this exact moment in time, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
soul saw this catalyst that it was going to happen. And you said, I want to be there in the midst of that and be a light in the darkness. So I don't want to waste this opportunity, but how do I take advantage of it? What is the universe asking me to do? How do we meet this? And to
Mm-hmm.
me, it looks like, just as Ra says, simply be true to your polarity.
Hmm.
Ra says, if a negative being is coming at you to attack you, manipulate you, distort you, they ask Ra, how do we, quote unquote, battle against a negative entity? What do we do?
Yeah.
When I was a Christian growing up in church, man, we rebuked those demons. We
Yeah.
called them names. We tried to cast them out with fire and anger, and it didn't work.
Mm.
Why? Because that's their polarity.
Right. You're playing the game.
You're playing the game by their rules, right?
Yes.
So Ra says, be true to your own polarity,
Mm.
meaning just emanate love and light. Send them love, good wishes, wish them the joy of the creator. And in doing so, you will depolarize them. Meaning, if a positive and a negative entity meet, one of those energies is going to win out. And whichever one is more true to their polarity will win out. We
Mm-hmm.
see this with people, right? Whoever has a stronger disposition will cause the other to gravitate into their disposition.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, a person who's extremely peaceful, we call this the mob mentality too, right? When enough people get stirred up, we find ourselves getting swept into this state of consciousness where we do things we would never do in a
Yeah.
sober mindset.
Yeah.
If you aren't true enough to who you are, you will submit to the energy of the other.
Mm.
So that is what we're being asked to do, in my estimation, right now, which is, I'm not making anybody my enemy. I love you. I see you as one with me, but I realize you are going towards the negative path, and that's not my polarity. So I
Yeah.
can't give in to your coercion. I
Yeah.
cannot say yes to the injustices you wish to impose on me. So how do we stand against that? Peaceful non-compliance. Sending our message in a way that shows the love and the light within us is what we're being asked to do. And that takes a lot of spiritual maturity, because
Mm-hmm.
it's easy to get sucked into the anger of the injustice and make the other the enemy. And we see a lot of people doing this right now, posts on Instagram where it's like, yeah, I agree with you. I also am not for, enforced vaccinations and all this stuff, but you're not helping when you're coming from that energy, hating
Yes.
these people and making them enemies. That's actually their polarity. That's what they want. So we have to be true to who we are.
Beautiful. I love that so much. Yeah, that's really, really helpful to just depolarize the whole thing, right? And get out of that.
Yeah.
And I do feel like in the entity situation, when I've had specific experiences, the only way that those energies also can enter in my experience, is through those lower chakras, any level of distortion. So it's
Yes.
like it's being like very aware of your own subtle distortions and starting to bring awareness and consciousness to those lower centers, so that you're like, oh yeah, you're playing on that string that I have
Yeah,
over there that's a
exactly.
little weak. And then being able to like witness it and see that's like the entry gate. And so
Yep.
cleaning that up and being very conscious and kind to like where you're at has been helpful. And then the other piece, which we talked about in person, is which I've been navigating through this whole experience we've been having collectively, is how to integrate wisdom into the speaking out. Because like I
Yes.
said, I've had like the lifetimes where I've been the martyr and I've been on the front lines of the French Revolution, and I'm like, yes, let's speak for freedom. And then it's like, I'm the first one shot. And it's like, oh, well, that didn't help very well. So like, how
That
can
didn't
I
go very well.
no, I'm like, how can I do it on platforms and in ways that can continue to be heard? Or how can I say it in ways that are not saying it but not saying it? Like, so
Right.
I'm personally having to utilize that. Like, this is part of my opportunity as a soul, which has been an interesting experience as well. So yeah. So
It's
much.
it's such a great catalyst when you live in a world that is just mirroring back to you all of the things you haven't worked out in yourself yet.
Yeah.
And so the other thing is, like, I don't want to miss this opportunity to do this work, because I want to be at a state of awareness, a level of awareness that I can live in this world and exactly what's happening and all the injustices being carried out, and not be triggered by any of it, and have peace of mind.
Oof.
So it's like, all I have to do is make use of these catalysts to get there. They're offering it on
Yes.
a silver platter. How do I see this situation from a viewpoint of love? Love still seeks to bring correction. but not from a place of anger or retribution or vengeance, right? And this is another thing we see happening. A big part of the reason there's so much conflict in our world is because we have a big segment of the population, at least here in America, that is moved by the injustices of the past and to an extent the present. And they want to bring justice to those things, but they're doing it through this lens of anger and vengeance, trying to sort of like make up for the sins of yesterday with sins today.
Right.
It's like, you're going to suffer for what your great grandparents did. And it's like, well,
Yes.
guess what? That's not justice.
Yeah.
And that actually keeps the wheel of karma going. And we see this in the left and the right hemispheres of the political spectrum. You know, when each side has the power over the other side, what do? They throw punches, right? They attack, wield the power. And that creates so much resentment and anger in the weaker side that when the tides shift, that side says, now it's our turn to get even. And they throw punches and punches and punches.
Yeah.
And so a lot of us, you know, a lot of people that I'm friends with, Caucasian and African-American alike, will say, this is ridiculously unfair. None of these people owned slaves. They shouldn't be treated as lesser than. They shouldn't be called racists and bigots for things they never did.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's true. But here's what we have to be aware of is that this collective energy of anger, you know, towards racism and subjugation of others is a karmic remnant of what was carried out on people 2 to 3 generations ago in the slavery and segregation days. I mean, every single person who was subject to real racism and hatred for the color of their skin, that goes into the Akashic records, right? It goes into the collective consciousness. It doesn't just like poof, disappear when they die. No, it comes back through cycle after cycle after cycle. And it's showing up now. All of that anger and injustice is showing up in this generation. And they're just acting it out, totally unaware of where it's even coming from.
Yeah.
And so that's why those of us who are seeing this level of sort of collective insanity have to meet it with love and forgiveness and say, I understand why you're angry. I feel the injustice you feel. I know the pain you feel. I'm with you. We just have to come together to figure out how we create a world of true unity, because we certainly can't create it by more hatred and more revenge. That just keeps the cycle of karma going. And so again, another great opportunity we all have right now is to meet this karmic expression of the injustices of our past with love and forgiveness rather than resentment.
Oh, the catalysts that can actually
catalysts abound.
Guide us and facilitate us towards actually more positivity if we meet it as an opportunity and we don't meet it as some kind of block. And I totally hear you on that front, because one of my big pieces of work is ancestral healing. And you're talking about, it's going into the Akashic, it has that karmic like cycling, and then it has this full morphogenetic, like ancestral genetic imprint that we play out on either side. Like if we were a perpetrator in those times, we might want to be like a victim and play out the other side of the polarity because like we feel so bad and like all these things perpetuate. So in my cleaning out of the lower chakras, it's like we need to clear out the ancestral imprints so that those things don't have to repeat. They're not even like in our template or field at all, and to resolve them fully. And yeah, we are responsible for our ancestors because we incarnated into certain families, and we're responsible to resolve that and clean that out so that we can move forward with clean templates in a non-polarized world, you know, and move through the end of third density in our own experiences. It's an opportunity to go back. You know, it's like we incarnate into these certain families, into these certain, you know, meat suits. And it's like, okay, great. This one was a good one. Thank you. All right. We're just going to clean this whole thing up too, you know? So it's like catalysts everywhere, which I like, you know, let's use it.
I do too.
Yeah.
I'm all about growth, baby.
I know. I love it. That's why you're awesome.
That's why we get along.
Yeah, that's why we get along. We're into this.